Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Scott. I'm the enterprise editor of The Sun, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Barry Scanlon, who is the assistant sports editor here at The Sun. Barry and I have both worked here for a lot of years. Barry has a story to tell. Barry was at the Boston Marathon today. Barry was a runner. Barry ran his best time today after how many times, Barry?
It's my 6:1. My previous best was 4:34, and today I finished 3:58, which I finished the finish line, beautiful weather, huge crowds. I'm on top of the world. And about 5 minutes later, the first explosion goes off, and you go from ecstasy to, I hope my family's okay. So the range of emotions right off the bat were severe, and from there things became more chaotic. And then you get a sense very quickly that something was amiss, something was wrong. That originally somebody thought, when the first explosion, that it might have been a gas leak, a gas break, and that was plausible. And then the noise was so big, and the earth shook a little bit, that a bunch of our runners turned around going through the chute to look back toward the finish line, and that's when we heard the second one. You could see a plume of smoke go way, way, way up into the air, and at that point, people were very concerned. Some people started to cry. And again, very chaotic. That's the word that I keep coming back. Very chaotic.
Barry, if you can, just try to set the scene for us.
Sure.
For those who might not be familiar with Boston, Boylston Street's a main thoroughfare in Boston. The explosions happened just about, 100 or 200 yards up from the finish line, correct? Just before the finish line?
I think it was more like about 50 yards.
Okay.
50 to 100 yards. Not very much. And I just passed there, and I can't get out of my head that some of those victims were people that I probably just passed. Maybe I said hello to. And again, it's such a positive day, Chris. I mean, thousands of people cheering there. Everybody's positive. There's no sarcastic comments. Everything is to get the runners to the finish line. And then you get there and something like this happens. It's really tough to imagine. And it was like I said, you went from the top of the world to, is my family okay? My wife and my daughters were near the finish line.
They were at the finish line.
They have a designated family area. And I couldn't even get in that area because emergency vehicles were flying by. So at that point, is my wife and kids okay? And all of a sudden, the metal here on your neck, it doesn't matter anymore. And it's just, it was just a very chaotic day. Like I said, Boston's a big city. You had noises all the time. But when the second explosion went off, it was a real sense that something, this isn't normal. This isn't a gas line break. This is not a transformer being blown, whatever. And 10 minutes later, you get the severity of it. You saw every emergency vehicle, people were screaming. Like I said, there were some people crying, looking for their family, feeling helpless. I was supposed to meet my parents here. I was supposed to meet my daughter. What do I do? And I went to school in Boston. I feel very comfortable in Boston. And that's the first time I was ever like, I didn't feel comfortable in Boston, you know? And you're just very happy to see a family at that point and get in the car and hopefully go home safely.
Barry, can you tell us what you smelled or what you felt? What, was there the smell of like sulfur or some type of like explosive?
Yeah.
Could you smell that?
I was about 100 yards away, Chris. I didn't smell anything differently, but the noises were incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
Were they deafening? I mean, were they?
It was very loud.
Were you
And I
shocked?
was 100 yards away, and the second one, maybe because you were almost waiting for something after the first one, the second one was palpable. It was loud, and like I said, when you look back, there was this smoke everywhere, debris everywhere. And
Did you feel a blast, excuse me, Barry, or did you feel like a shock wave?
It was more like the ground.
Okay.
It was more like the ground shook, and the whole thing about the marathon, the way it's set up, is once you pass the finish line, there's an emergency tent on the right. Everything else is, they'll have drinks for you. Eventually, you can walk about a half hour and get your medal. But they really want you to keep going. Even when nothing's going wrong, they want you to keep going for the thousands of runners behind you. And so at that point, people were walking a little quicker. And like I said, it was just amazing how it went from, you just ran the Boston Marathon, one of the most prestigious races in the world, a very difficult race, and you finished. And it's euphoric. You're on top of the world, and then all of a sudden it's like, people probably hurt back there. And as it turns out, more than a few people were hurt.
So tell us what you did next after the second explosion. You were with your wife and daughters, right?
After the second explosion, we quickly moved down the street, and it's a long process. You got to walk almost a mile before you could take a right to meet your family. Well, there's a designated area. I went to go to the designated area, and they kept saying, you can't come down here. And that's, I think, the first time I thought, really, something's wrong. And then it was panic. People were screaming, get out of the street. And ambulances were flying by. So at that point, it's like, I don't know where to meet my family. I wonder if my family's okay. You don't know. And I grabbed a stranger's cell phone. I called up. My wife didn't answer, which made me further panicked. And then a couple minutes later, one of my nieces just happened to see me walking down the street, and we all connected. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't cried like that in a long time when I saw my kids and my wife. It was a very emotional moment. Some of it is you just put your body through a lot, 4 hours of pounding, but to see my family, and you saw that a lot. I had a complete stranger come up to me and put his arm around me, which sounds weird and odd, but it wasn't. He was just, you could tell he just wanted to talk to somebody. And he kept saying, can you believe this just happened in Boston? Can you believe it? And we're like, no, I can't believe it.
Barry, do you feel lucky today to be here and not injured? Because if you had been running a slower time, right? I'm just trying to do the math in my head. You could have been there.
I feel extremely fortunate, Chris. My brother, my best friend, I ran with him almost the whole race. He was just ahead of me by a minute. A very good friend of mine, son, was a couple minutes behind me. And he's a 19-year-old kid, and to finish, a couple of my adult friends ran with him. So literally, about 5 or 6 of my closest friends in the world came across that finish line within 3 or 4 minutes. And we all just missed those explosions by a matter of minutes. I feel...
So you had just finished. You had, how many minutes had you finished? How many minutes had elapsed between your finish and then the first explosion? Do you know?
I would say 4 to 5 minutes.
4 to 5, oh my goodness.
But you would think 4 to 5 minutes, you'd be further away.
Oh no, but it is chaotic.
It's very difficult to walk when you've run that long, so people are more shuffling down the street. Ordinarily, you'd be far away after 4 or 5 minutes, but I was only 100 yards because I was moving very quickly. And I feel very, very lucky that I'm okay, my family's okay, my friends are okay, because...
And your good friend Pat Cook's son is okay too.
He's okay, and everybody's okay, and my heart goes out for the people who went down to that race to celebrate a loved one, or they're raising money for a charity, and to think that they could be injured or killed, it just boggles the imagination.
All right, Barry, thank you. I'm glad you're back safely. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone.